I think there we go. Okay. So the last kind of piece, and this is probably the longest piece that I wanted to chat about, was churn in general, and why this process we went through was actually a bigger impact to our business than the new business. Typically, sales is kind of focused on being it gets glorified, and I'm coming from a salesperson. I'll admit that sales gets the glory a lot of times of closing new business, and it's oftentimes that sales is regarded as the driving force behind why the business is growing. But what we learned in this process was actually churn is just a much more impactful lever than new business, and here's why. So we discovered this this tool, this SaaS calculator that's provided by Nickel, and I'll include the link at the end of this so you can all run through the same process. But Nickel created this SaaS calculator that enables you to measure the growth ceiling of your SaaS business. So most SaaS businesses will eventually hit a growth ceiling, which is essentially when you get the number of customers churned is equal to the number added. It's kind of the ultimate thing to avoid. But most SaaS companies reach this point, and we found this tool and we thought it was interesting, so we plugged some more numbers in. So this is what it looks like. You essentially enter 4 main key points. So you enter how many customers you currently have, how many new customers you get on a monthly basis, your churn, as well as your monthly revenue per account, so your average revenue per user. And then entering those numbers, it'll spit out what your growth ceiling was. And we were excited about this, but we were a little bit nervous. And so here's what happened before we put in the numbers from prior to the PQL trial process. So we had 500 customers. We're getting about 40 new customers a month. Our churn rate that we saw earlier was 12.9, and the monthly revenue per account was about $32. So we put these numbers in, we clicked on the calculator, and it spit out these results. So this was back in, a few months back. I think this was February, March. And the results that came out were pretty concerning. So your business, it told us that our business would actually hit a growth ceiling in June of 2018, which is 2 months from the day that we had actually submitted this. So essentially, based on our unit economics, we only had 2 more months before we were going to be starting to churn as many customers as we were gaining. And not only that, eventually the growth ceiling would actually drop from the 500 customers that we had down to 310. So we'd actually be losing more customers than we were gaining at some point, and our overall ceiling would drop to 310. So this was the real big kind of awakening for us as well when we were running through this process. So what we did was we actually put our numbers in after we dropped our churn by 63% to see what the impact of that was. And so the numbers between that were 583 customers we had at the moment. We were now increased our number of new customers per month from 40 to 50. We dropped our monthly churn to 4.8, which was the big change, and then our monthly revenue per user actually went up by $2. So the the 50 new customers per month and the average revenue per users were also slight kind of levers, but the main one here was the monthly churn. And this is where things got really interesting for us. We clicked on this, and it showed us that we're actually going to hit a growth ceiling 75 months from today. So by dropping our churn by that 63%, we actually bought ourselves 6 more years of Bonjoro. That simple change from the unit economics made a huge impact. And now that's not to say that Bonjoro 6 years from now will be done. It's one of those metrics that we always focus on. We always want to continue keeping our revenue per user higher, the amount of customers we're getting per month to grow, and our churn low. But just this. Simply the 63% drop in churn bought us 6 extra years of business, which was mind-blowing for us. Now, this is the kind of the next measurement that we did was really interesting, and here's why churn is a more important lever than new business. So we took our new numbers, we reverted churn back up by 63%, but instead we added 63% more new business. So going back to that previous screen, 583, We initially had 40 new customers. We bumped that up to 65 per month. So we added 63% more new business. We dropped our monthly churn back to 12.9 and kept our monthly revenue again at 34. So essentially, we just swapped those two, new business and monthly churn. One went back to 63%, one went up by 63%. And this is what really blew our mind, was it didn't actually change the growth ceiling at all. So going back to our original numbers where our growth ceiling was 2 months, by adding 63% more revenue per month, we actually still only bought ourselves 2 more months of Bonjoro. The only main difference here was that our growth ceiling actually wouldn't drop significantly by 200 customers. We would still maintain where we were at, and our MRR would stay the same. But the big thing was that the ceiling that we had was exactly the same. We didn't have buy ourselves any more time by adding the same amount of new business as we had lost in churn.